Bravely Default is a standout title. Originally only released in Japan, fan demand from overseas got the game released worldwide. It released to critical acclaim before releasing its sequel, Bravely Second. And now, after a 6-year gap, the series is returning with Bravely Default 2, the anticipation of which saw Bravely Second on 3DS become the second best-selling game in the UK at one point this year, beaten only by Last of Us Part 2. So, here's 5 things you need to know about Bravely Default. Bravely Default started out as a sequel to the DS game Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light, and a lot of elements are borrowed from that, including Akihiko Yoshida, the character designer, and the term Heroes of Light, which is still used to refer to the protagonists of Bravely Default games. But they later chose to turn it into its own series with its own identity, taking inspiration from the Final Fantasy series. In this way, Final Fantasy would continue its pursuit of modern graphics and action gameplay, while Bravely Default focused on keeping the ideas of classic turn-based RPGs alive. However, the one big difference is in the name itself, the Brave and Default system, which lets you charge up and expel multiple turns all at once. There have been similar ideas in other RPGs, but this was the first to have every character do it and have their enemies do it as well. This means that each battle can get a lot more complex, and so it's become difficult to balance it. Thus, they created a team of developers whose job wasn't just QA, but rather to constantly test the balance of the Brave and Default system, with developers of different skill levels being tasked with finding balance issues on every difficulty level. At the start, they were so confident in Bravely Default that they wanted to turn it into an annual series, a new Bravely game every year. But this was cut short quickly with Bravely Second. While it was received positively, some mentioned that there was very little new about it, which was disappointing since Bravely Default was such a big deal at the time. This prompted them to cancel their plans for quick sequels, and even made them consider ending the series altogether. In the meantime, they focused on their next title, Octopath Traveler. However, the success of the Bravely Default mobile game inspired them to give it another shot, with the director calling this new title Bravely Default Automata among the team. In this way, he was saying that like Nier Automata, it will be a game that serves not as a direct sequel, but as an exciting new take on the original idea. When it came to giving it a real title, they went with Bravely Default 2 to emphasize that it wasn't Bravely Third. However, in this process, a big part of Bravely Default had left the project. Akihiko Yoshida is one of the Final Fantasy series' top designers, and his style of deformed characters informed the look of the original games. However, during development of Bravely Second, he left Square Enix and ended up working at Cygames. So since he was so instrumental to the original look, the look of Bravely Default 2 has been built from the ground up based on the work of the new designer, Naoki Ikushima, who previously worked as the character designer for Octopath Traveler. On 2, he's also responsible for designing each and every job costume in the game. And Akihiko Yoshida wasn't the only one to leave. While Bravely Default was written by Steins Gate's Naotaka Hayashi, Bravely Default 2 is being written by Yura Kubota, who wrote Octopath Traveler. The backgrounds of Bravely Default were grand 2D illustrations that felt like you were walking on a painting, but with 2 they've sought to evolve that, and so the evolution of a painting, I guess, would be papercraft. But they found that it didn't quite work originally, so they took this idea even further, making it so the characters and monsters felt like miniature models, similar to the effects of Link's Awakening remake. In this way, they've truly revamped Bravely Default. It's not just a sequel, but a reinvention that goes back to the original ideas and takes them in a new direction. Thanks for watching OTAQUEST in Japan. Feel free to subscribe to find out more about the art and creation of Japanese pop culture.